Well, appreciate start of another week and with our guys. And, obviously 4 games in and we've done some good things. You appreciate the effort and them being such to put themselves into each week and each game and get to do it again. And obviously some things that we can build on and each guy, each position, each unit's got areas where we can continue to grow. So we need to have a good week, obviously, of preparation, and but looking forward to it. And it's this time when I come in, just finishes up our morning with the players, so it's always good to get it started.
Paul, I mean, the schedule's been set for some time, but are there any different challenges to prepping for a non-conference game after you've already started league play a couple games in?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think that each week has its own challenges and opportunity to it. And so I think you do certainly think a lot less of that when you know this is what's in front of you. And, and there's a lot to prepare for with this team. And to give ourselves the best chance on Saturday, you have to have a great week of preparation. And, every week I think you certainly have to know and study and understand and prepare as best you can for your opponent. And yet I think equally as important is your own preparation, your own growth and controllables. And so I think, I think in all that there's similarities to each week, and then each week has its own specific differences, challenges, both what the opponent does and kind of where you're at. You shouldn't be the same person each week. You got to keep growing, and so I think that it doesn't matter whether it's a Big Ten opponent, non-conference. It's one more opportunity to play, and how do you maximize it?
Paul, Jack Sanborn got some valuable reps last year at inside linebacker. What has he done to put himself in position that he's in now, where he can have a game like he did against Northwestern?
Yeah, it's been fun seeing the growth of Jack, and I think certainly last year. Yeah, every rep you get, they're valuable, and he's obviously a talented player, but he's a smart player, and I think smart enough to know how to learn, how to get better, how to take those experiences, and I think that when you put the work in like he has done, then you have something to fall back on and trust. I think he certainly trusts himself as a player, not satisfied, but trusts himself as a player, and then the more prepared you are and confident you are, then I think it frees you up to turn it loose. And I think he's playing that way, and kind of, piggyback off of what we were just talking about the last Jeff's question, that each week it's different, but how do you keep stacking those things together, and that's how you grow. But I've loved the way that he's going out, and he's worked his tail off to where he is just cutting it loose and playing, trusting himself and playing, and I think that allows you to play fast.
Paul, I don't know when you're coaching a guy if you look at him ever and say, hey, this guy could be a coach someday. If so, did Sean Lewis strike you as that kind of guy when you had him here?
Yeah, it's I was lucky. I really enjoyed being around Sean, and knew that he liked football, and I knew that he liked his teammates. He was always fun and easy to be around, but I can't say that I knew. I remember when he told me, I was pumped, and then as you follow him and track his career, I was excited for him, and he was, he worked to get different opportunities and obviously did well with those. But I think at the time, he was one of those guys you were glad was in your room, and I had a chance to be around him a lot. And he's just, whatever the team needed, he was going to jump in on. Whatever he could do, he was going to work at. He enjoyed being around him. I couldn't say at the time that I knew, okay, he's going to be a coach, but it didn't surprise me, and I'm glad that he did choose that, and obviously has done well.
He said that he recalls, bouncing off you, whether it was a good idea to get into coaching. Yeah. Do you remember what your advice was to him?
Yeah, I mean, I did. I've always felt this, and I'm glad I did it. And fortunate what happened, and so you'd always want to encourage it, but at the same time, it's going to be tough, but I think if you go in it for the right reasons, then you'll do well in it. I don't remember exact conversation, but I do remember talking about once he kind of hinted at it and alluded to it, and my wife would be the first one to say, "Sure," and then, but at the same time, it's I think they, we're pretty fortunate to do this, and you want him to have open eyes to it, but he's smart. He's smarter than I am, so. Yeah, that's how you start it, and then once you know they do, because I think sometimes there's they don't. What else is out there, right? They know this world, and if they're sure, then I think they got a chance to be really good.
Jack Cohn throws his first interception of the season last week. He always seems like a guy that's got a pretty even keel about him.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see that after that, kind of responding to that interception, keeping that same mentality?
Yeah, I mean it's there's no. Whether it's Jack on that play or any of the guys that make a mistake, they don't want to do that, and it means something. But I think they know that you have to move forward. The next play is most important, and he's done that. And I think he does it both ways. He does it when there's something good that happens. I think you see it. I mean, he gets emotional and he's excited for the team, and then he'll snap back in it, and I think it's the same way when something negative, and that you appreciate that from your players, right? I mean, it's not like it didn't matter, but at the same time, it wasn't going to get them again, and that you do appreciate as a coach.
Paul, what concerns do you have, if any, of the defense letting up in the fourth quarter and just Jack struggling a bit? Do you have concerns, or what would they be?
Yeah, I mean, it was. Your focus as a coach is to take things that you're doing and how do you work on them. Things that are you want to keep building it, and negatives, and part of it is, there's also another component to it, and that's the opponent. And you have to give them. You have to respect that and give them credit, and things happen, and it's not all like the result is the final result is one thing. It's how did it get there, and what went into it, and that's why I said it before, and it really there's like each guy. I mean, we had some guys play unbelievably well, and yet they do have. We don't have to make it up. There's things that they can do to clean up their game, and I think the same thing applies with the units. It was the same way, really, in every game. There hasn't been post-game, where you didn't say, okay, Jack can work on these things. Very specific. And same thing, defensively as a group.
It seemed as though your offense operated a lot out of the shotgun against Northwestern.
Mm-hmm.
What went into that? And also, after watching the tape, what specifically did you think Northwestern did to take some things away offensively?
Well, I think that, that was our plan going in. And I think that, we didn't. You just think about it, where you've got to defend a whole field, and I don't think that we necessarily attacked the whole field to the point where they had to defend the whole field. And I think that's when you can do that, you'll be your best. And I don't care what style of offense you're doing. If you can attack the whole field, you're going to be harder to defend.
Paul, I'm guessing you guys emphasize, or Jim, your defensive coordinator, does turnovers every year. But some years the number's up, some years down. Have you been able to explain why some years a defense just gets the ball out and other years it doesn't?
Yeah, it is. I know what we coach and you emphasize, and I think there is something to, like anything, players feeling it. When you look at it, I remember back a couple years ago, T.J. Watt got on a deal where he felt it. He knew how to attack the ball. You see that with it's experience, right? It's DBs that and not all of them are, right? There's going to be some that are tipped, some that the ball finds you sometimes, and then there's others that find it. And what's also fun about it is that if you look at so many of these, and just in football, certainly for ours, it's multiple people have to do something to create that takeaway. And so I think it's as reflective of good team defense as it is. There are, Peanut Tillman's famous, right? I mean, he's got the punch named after him. I mean, there's a guy that had a knack, but you see a lot of it, and it is group team efforts. Heck, both of Henny's scores were off of that. Where there's someone else doing it, and so I think it's, every team in America probably coaches it, emphasizes it, and yet I think that's why you're always appreciative, and there's a it doesn't just happen. And so when they do, there's a lot that goes into it, and you appreciate that as a coach.
Coach, you mentioned Jack and the way he's playing right now, inside linebacker, but him and Chryst kind of becoming anchors of the defense together. What's it like watching those guys' personalities kind of mesh on and off the field? They seem a little bit different, a little more boisterous from Chryst, a little quieter from Jack.
I think so. The bottom line is, though, I think they truly care about each other and they respect each other, and they're both smart. They don't know who they are, and I love seeing them interact, and love seeing, really, that's one of the best parts of my job is the interaction of all our guys. But they certainly do complement each other in a lot of ways.
Could you please share your impressions of the disparity between the top-tier teams in the Big Ten and everybody else?
I don't really spend a lot of time thinking about that. I'm fortunate. I get to focus on this team and this game this week against Kent State.
Paul, when you were a coordinator, you preferred to be up in the booth. Other guys like to be down in the field. Is that just a personal preference thing, and what are kind of the advantages to both?
Yeah, it's. I think it is personal. I'd always been, all the jobs and positions I'd been up there, so there was certainly a comfort for me. And I felt really fortunate when I was coordinating here. I had a really good group that I worked with on. So really all I had to do was talk to the quarterback, and you could easily do that, on the headsets. And I loved having all the guys there with the guys, and for me, it worked. But been around, in those experiences, been around guys that truly felt really good, probably felt the best on the field, and been with others where they've been up top. So I kind of see it. I think that's the advantage of having a lot of experiences. You see that it may be different, but it works and for different people. And I think, so I know how I was, and I think it was a combination for me and really who I was with.
Paul, you said you, going into the game, you planned to be in the shotgun up. What was it about Northwestern that made you change? Because that a pretty significant change from the first 3 games. Yeah,
I just thought what we were trying to do, it was going to give us our best chance.
Paul, through the first 4 weeks of the season, you guys have kind of seen different wins in different styles. How important is that you got those wins in different ways against Big Ten opponents, and then you can fine-tune it going into a non-conference game?
Yeah, I mean, you're always looking to, whether you say fine-tune it or improve, right? And I think that everyone knows that as you go through a season, when you play a game, the goal is to be the best you can be and give yourself a chance to win, and in the end, find a way to score one more point or more than the opponent, right? And it's going to be, it's going to play out so many different ways. And so I think that you got to go with it and you roll with it. And every game there's adversity, and how do you overcome that, and how do you persevere? All those are good, and we'll continue to be tested on that. And so I think when you look back on any season, you're going to see it a lot of different ways that games played out. And So I think that's why it's important. You just got to be in the moment, and to make the most of that moment, you just got to go one play at a time, and whatever happens, and find a way together to get it done.